Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Atlanta Sports Podcast. My name is Frankie Maloof, and I am joined by my co-host Luke Winstel. You can follow us on Twitter at ATL Sportscast, and you can check out our website at atlantasportspodcast.com. If you have any questions or suggestions, which are both appreciated, you can email us at theshow@atlantasportspodcast.com. Today we will get into the last week's worth of sports news around the city of Atlanta. We will also provide questions of the week for each of the three professional Atlanta sports franchises. Let's get started. So we'll start out with the Braves. They optioned former top 5 prospect Aaron Blair to Gwinnett. They recalled Matt Marksberry. They DFA'd former All-Star pitcher Alexi Ogando. They called up relief pitching flamethrower Mauricio Cabrera from Mississippi. In his debut last night, which you were at, right?
Yes.
He threw 6 of his 7 pitches over 100 miles an hour. He had an 84-mile-an-hour changeup. That definitely has got to be hard to hit if he didn't change his arm speed. I know from experience it's hard to hit off-speed pitches. So how did he look?
His pitch was 102 miles an hour.
How did he look last night, just from the audience?
He looked very good. He looked confident, and he got some good fielding help. He got out of a jam with 2 runners on and 1 out, and he really looked good, so I'm excited to see what else they'll get out of him. My first thought when I heard he was promoted, I was really surprised, but then I thought, well, he doesn't have any options left because he's been on the 40-man roster for a couple of years, and they've called him up for spring training, as they do with everyone on the 40-man roster. So he's out of options now, so if he performs well, they'll keep him in Atlanta, but if he doesn't, they'll probably outright him, which means they just send him to Gwinnett, and he can't refuse it because you get 1 outright in your career. So they might just be trying to open up a 40-man roster spot and get a couple innings to a young guy so you can get some experience. Also, over the last 6 games, the Braves are 3-3, and they were playing the Marlins and the Mets, and they lost 8-3 to the Indians last night, so they're down 0-1 in the series, and they have 3 games left.
Yeah,
so now we'll move on to the Falcons.
Yeah, this is the one time you don't really want to be hearing too much about a football team, because if you do, it's probably not a great reason. But the Falcons, they've got no news this week, which is good. They haven't had news for a while since the draft. It's a good thing. We'll get into them later as training camp and everything else gets underway. And then the Hawks.
We'll move on to some Hawks news. They've traded Jeff Teague to the Pacers in a 3-team trade. It's old news by now. But they received the number 12 overall pick from the Jazz, and that was used to pick Taurean Prince, who's a small forward from Baylor. He can compete for some starting minutes. I don't personally believe he will start, but I think he will contribute to the team. And an article by Bleacher Report, they projected him to average a decent amount of minutes, and I think it was like 10 points and 8 rebounds. So that's really good from a rookie.
That sounds
also, with their pick, they select DeAndre Bembry from St. Joseph's, number 21 overall.
Yep, the Hawks, they've still been looking for that 1 year. Obviously, they had their 60-win season a couple years ago. They just haven't quite been able to get over the hump. They've been good for a while, but they've never been great. So we'll start getting into our questions. We'll start with the Braves again. The question this week is, what is the weakest link in the Atlanta Braves franchise? We came up with catching.
I think the weakest link is going to be the lack of catching talent in the system. They've got Lucas Herbert, a catcher, in the 2nd round of last year's draft. And they also have Brett Cumberland, number 76 overall. And that's just attempting to put more catching talent in the minor league system, but they don't have a single catching solution for the future outside of those two.
And they haven't had a catcher since Brian McCann. They've had Evan Gattis. They had David Ross, I think, for a little bit. A.J. Przinsky this year. And Christian Bethancourt was supposed to be the catcher of the future, but he didn't turn out. It's been a while. All right, the Atlanta Falcons, we'll get into their question. Is quarterback Matt Ryan capable of being a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Now, I say he is. You don't necessarily need a top 5 quarterback to win a championship. Trent Dilfer is an example. He won the Super Bowl. He wasn't great. He was good, not great. I think Matt Ryan's good, not great. He's a little hurt by the fact that he's trying to run the show by himself. He's got Julio Jones, but outside of him, there's really not too many options for him to utilize. The offensive line didn't give him any help last year. Got sacked way too many times. But if Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff make the right personnel moves, the Falcons could be in the Super Bowl by the time the city is hosting one in 2019.
And I think that I agree that Matt Ryan could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Just got to put the right supporting cast around him. I think Mohamed Sanu is going to be better than most people think. I know he was overpaid, but I think he has a shot to succeed in the offense. So I think that's a couple good wide receivers. Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman in the backfield. I'll take that over most any combination in the NFL. And the offensive line's getting better. We still need a couple guards, but I think that will be fixed in the next year or two.
Yep. Things are looking up for the Falcons. The Atlanta Hawks, what does the draft tell you about what the Hawks are planning in free agency?
Well, I think it tells me several things, and you can think what you will. They've talked a lot about trying to re-sign Bazemore and Horford. I think Bazemore is going to end up asking for too much money to keep him. So selecting the 2 wing players tells me that Horford's going to be retained because we have no one that can replace him. We didn't draft anyone at his position. We could get a free agent, maybe Dwight Howard, but I think Horford's the best option that we have. I feel like Bazemore is going to be let go. We probably won't have the cap space, like I just mentioned. He could be asking upwards of $15 million a year, and I think that's kind of where you draw the line. I pay him $13 million a year maximum if I'm in the Hawks front office. But we will have enough cap space after trading Jeff Teague and his $8 million contracts for 1 year. We will have enough space to sign another wing like Nicholas Batum, who averaged 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists last year, playing for the Charlotte Hornets. It also tells me a superstar won't be heading to Atlanta. The Kevin Durant dream is pretty much over. He didn't even schedule to visit the Hawks.
That's a little disappointing.
And Barnes, Golden State, a guy that a lot of people wanted. He's barely above average in the ideal system, so I don't really think a lot of him either.
Yeah.
So I just think I think Horford's going to be our best option.
Yeah, Durant was a little disappointing. I was hoping he'd come to Atlanta, but Dwight Howard didn't come a couple of years ago. This is his hometown, so Atlanta just seems to be getting overlooked. And that brings me to something else that we didn't plan to include, but what do you think the Atlanta sports teams, are their fan bases rallying behind them enough? I don't
think they are.
Yeah, I think we have way too many fair-weather fans. You look around the stadiums, the Braves right now, you could go sit wherever you wanted. I mean, you could buy one of the upper-level tickets and come sit on the first row. There's really just Atlanta fans have given up, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, the Braves, they're not much to get excited about, but still, you got to at least go to a couple games and support your team. A lot of people are not. So I think that just lets people know that Atlanta fans are not. A lot of fans are true fans, but we definitely have a fair number that are not.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you again for listening to Atlanta Sports Podcast. Remember to follow us on Twitter at ATL Sportscast and to continue to come check on our website for more blog posts and podcasts. You can also email us with any questions or suggestions at the show at atlantasportspodcast.com.